There we go. Problem solved. All my problems are solved now, I guess. Hello, viewers. My name is Zack Hardy, and I don't know if I'm in camera angle. Fuck. Do this. All right. We're gonna hope that solves my problems. Hello, viewers. It is hell, as always. My name is Zack Hardy, and this is my review of USW No Forgiveness 2018, an Intensity branded pay-per-view for Ultimate Showcase Wrestling. It is the first sole branded or exclusive brand exclusive USW pay-per-view of 2018. The last being, the last one of 2017 being Aftershock for the Severity brand. I've already reviewed Insanity from last month, which was the dual branded pay-per-view between Intensity and Severity. And I will be reviewing, and again, I know I'm late as always, I will be reviewing Severity's Outcast pay-per-view. I think it is Outcast pay-per-view, probably next week, because it does happen the same night of Elimination Chamber, so I'll probably be watching that instead of Elimination Chamber and catch up with Elimination Chamber, because I'm just sick of the WWE. Anyway, this show is one of the big shows that I don't remember there being a No Forgiveness pay-per-view in 2017. I think they scratched it out and had a different show take its place, whether that was February or January of last year. But I do know that there were a couple of pay-per-views that had made their, or will be making their return in 2018 in the USW calendar, and this was, I believe, one of the ones that people were looking forward to the most. And I think that No Forgiveness really fits Intensity and the creative direction and product that the brand is going in. I would like to, before I get into the review, I would like to state something that people have been confused about for a couple of months now, and that is what the wrestle target is. And I know you've seen it in thumbnails for a lot of my videos, and I've mentioned it before. The wrestle target is my news source that I put on Twitter. It is my Twitter account that I use for all news source when it comes down to WWE or Impact Wrestling or USW or whatever it may be. Any newsworthy pieces of information will be put out there, or that I find newsworthy will be put onto the Wrestle Target Twitter page. Any credible rumors or any interesting rumors that have some sort of backing to them, results to a lot of pay-per-views. We may be doing live tweets at it at some point in time, and we also have a Wrestle Target exclusive page on my website, thezackhardy.com, in which I do a bunch of articles, mostly on USW performers and so on and so forth, and I link out those on Twitter as well, or I give a link to those articles on Twitter as well. So I might, just give an ad read at the top of every, review or every video that I do on the Unitards channel, on the Wrestle Target, or for the Wrestle Target, just to kind of maybe give it some traction. Now, going into the No Forgiveness pay-per-view, it had 1, 2, 3, this is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 8 matches on the card. You had the regular championship matches, and you had a couple different. You had a split up between the Prophecy and Simon Saint and Marvelous Guys tag team feud there. You had Zach Arden and Morgan Anthony, which I will, just give you a heads up, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that match. And then you also had the Derek Carter and Mr. Anthony match. So we'll get right into the show and discussing it. It was one of those shows that I think a lot of people expected to kind of be, worth tossing aside, not giving much notice to. As I close this container of cookies up, primarily because it's it's on the road to Call to Greatness, so it's one of those pay-per-views after Insanity that sets up a brand's specific direction for Call to Greatness. Now, there is No Forgiveness this month. I forget what the pay-per-view is next month. I think it's Allegiance in March. And those are the 2 Intensity shows that will be building up to Call to Greatness. So any show up until April, any pay-per-view up until April, any show really for USW the rest of the year until April is just going to be a build up to Call to Greatness, in which it all comes to a head there at the end of April. So because of that, a lot of these pay-per-views that are going to be coming up soon have been just, in the eyes of a lot of people, worth throwing aside and not paying much attention to. However, when it comes to No Forgiveness, I think this definitely was worth the watch. You had a lot of great matches, and when it comes down to it, the moment at the end of the show was fantastic. A lot of stories were kind of pushed further. You kind of got a lot more credibility out of performers like the Stargazers, Mr. Anthony, Hernastley, Fernandez, and Kyrie Carver especially. So this show had a lot of things you would like, a lot of things to nitpick at, but a lot of things you would walk away really enjoying from the show. So from the kickoff match, we start there. It is Simon Saint in his return match facing off against Gringo. Now, Simon Saint's name has now been moved from Simon ST period to Simon SAIND. So I think that was so I don't know what the reasoning for that was, but it's just something to notice as you go on farther, the spelling change. This match was really interesting. I think you knew going into it that Simon Saint was going to walk out with the win. I think the story of the match for a lot of fans that knew what the outcome was going to be ahead of time was to see how Gringo held himself. Because if Gringo just kind of layered around there, like he knew he was going to get beat, but wanted to just give out a little bit of a strong outing, that wouldn't have been anything too impressive. Now, Gringo and Fernandez have a team. They're kind of flaunting off their notoriety or whatever, or their tag team ability. They're calling themselves Marvelous. These marvelous group of brothers, or this marvelous brotherhood. And so both of those performers, Gringo and Fernandez, are going to have to kind of impress a lot of the fans going forward in order to have the fans give them some sort of credibility, some sort of care. And so with a loss impending to Simon Saint, Gringo really had to impress when it came down to his singles ability. And I think he did that. Saint had a lot of offense going in. Gringo had a lot of this very Iron Man-like resilience. He just kept fighting back and would not stay down. And that was a good story that was being told. Really strengthened Gringo and his character and his wrestling ability overall. And even though Simon Saint did win in the end, Gringo did walk away with turning some heads in the crowd. They kind of got a grasp of him, and I think he may have given Fernandez and Gringo that combination a little bit more credibility as the time goes on. So Simon Saint walks out with the victory over Gringo. Both men look good. Simon Saint has momentum going, and Gringo gives and establishes more credibility in the Marvelous Brotherhood team that he's got with Fernandez. So I like this match, 3.75 out of 5 stars. I'll tell you why it doesn't get the 3.5 out of 5 that I expected to give, and that is because not only did it have some really good wrestling ability, or it had some really good wrestling, and not only did it have a great story, but it did what not a lot of kickoff matches tend to do, where it established that this show is going to get better as the night goes on, but it also established both performers at the same time, which is something that you don't tend to see a lot in the lower mid card when it comes down to these pay-per-view shows. So 3.75 out of 5 stars for the ability to impress me in Gringo and Simon Saint. So I will walk away from that and move on to the next segment, which was the Roseline interview with Zack Hardy, the USW champion. This is, continuing to build into this storyline that is going on with Kyle Reese Jr. becoming more of an asshole and more of an arrogant prick backstage, and transcending into that heel role that I don't think he's ever really been involved in, by putting people down backstage. And one of the people that he's been putting down the most is Roseline, for being one of the only women in USW really at all. I mean, other than behind the scenes, because I guarantee you there are a lot of female employees of USW. One of the only on-screen employees that are female for USW is Roseline, other than Aphrodite on severity. And so Zack Hardy was kind of like the white knight or whatever that was, trying to tell off Kyle Reese Jr. So there was that face or that heel and face mentality. So that's been building up, and we saw that the Reese and Hardy angle build up last month at Insanity when Reese went down to ringside to kind of check in on both performers to try to throw the match out. Something that Zack Hardy obviously doesn't take fond of. So this was just kind of a build more towards that storyline. So we're going to expect to see that more flourish towards Call to Greatness. Next match was the Blue Belt Championship, and it was Tyree Carver defending the championship against Hernasli. This match was indeed one of my favorite outings at No Forgiveness. Not just for the fact that it was a good match, but for the fact that going into the year, we already knew that Tyree Carver had a chip on his shoulder that he needed to perform with. He is now going past the Blue Belt Championship reign of Philip Akron. He's now the successor to Philip Akron's Blue Belt Championship reign. And as we've all known for the past couple of months, especially in my reviews and especially watching everything develop, Philip Akron's championship reign was extremely good and is up there with one of the best. So Tyree Carver has to prove that he can kind of keep momentum going for the Blue Belt Championship and keep the championship's momentum continuing on. So he needs to go, and while Philip Akron's reign was built off of this great character holding on to this championship at whatever means necessary, Tyree Carver's character is now he's having to climb up the ladder to make himself credible whilst also keeping the credibility, and I know I've used that word a lot, of the Blue Belt Championship on the level that it is. So I think this was a fantastic way to start that and keep that going, because Tyree Carver had a fantastic outing against Hernasli, and Hernasli is, again, a fantastic in-ring performer. So they both meshed very well, and Tyree Carver was able to kind of walk out with alleviated off of his shoulder a little bit more than beforehand. Again, this was a really good match. It showed character. It helped Tyree Carver climb up another rung towards proving himself. This was really his proving ground. And now I think as the months go on, we'll see more depth out of Tyree Carver, because over the past year, Tyree Carver's really just been the protege of Philip Akron. So that was really the only dimension that he had. That was really the only dimension of character that he had to offer. So now, after this whole protege run with Philip Akron, and he turns on his former mentor, he's now the Blue Belt champion. He's got to add more layers to his character, and he's starting to do that. And now you can just see him trying to climb up the ranks and the ladder of getting that character over. He's now becoming somewhat over with the fans. People are not really liking him. They're seeing his heelish ways, and they're booing him, and that's pretty damn good. He's getting the fans to care, and that's fantastic. And this match was really something that kind of made him stick out in my eyes. He wasn't just another Blue Belt championship going about his reign until he eventually loses it. He had a level of importance there, and he added layers to his character, and I very much enjoyed that. So that was a fantastic outing. Now, on behalf of Hernasli, I don't know what is going to be going on in the future. There's been talks of the Zack Hardy and Hernasli rematch at Call to Greatness. There's been talks about him making his way into the USW Championship picture after Call to Greatness. There's been talks about him in a tag team. There's a boatload of different talk about Hernasli and his future direction right now. I have no clue what it is. I have no clue what is in store. I can't even begin to guess. But maybe we'll just see a Hernasli Tyree Carver Blue Belt Championship feud going into Call to Greatness and have it culminate at that show. But you know what? For what this match was at No Forgiveness, I give it 4 stars out of 5 stars. It was just a really impressive outing by Tyree Carver, and a good match that you could probably tell was carried by Hernasli, but Tyree Carver definitely had his splashes of influence in there. So I really enjoyed that match, and it was a really good outing for Tyree Carver. The next match was Fernandez versus Prophecy. Fernandez, the other half of this marvelous brotherhood with Gringo, who lost to Simon Saint earlier in the night. Fernandez is now being given the responsibility of keeping this momentum of his marvelous brotherhood going with a win over Prophecy. And there's different little elements of this of a story in this match. You have Fernandez, who is trying to make up for Gringo's loss earlier in the night with a win over Prophecy, and Prophecy's he's just kind of there in the mid cards. He had an interesting opening start to his feud with Fernandez and Gringo when it was at the end of December, and they started kind of feuding. They added they started to boil the water of the feud, and then with the stipulation, I don't know why it was dropped. Again, I don't know why it was dropped, but with the stipulation, or I think it was dropped, of Prophecy having to become the Fernandez and Gringo's servant or bad boy for for the rest of the month or until Call Raiders or something like that. If he had lost, that was an interesting little element that they had added. I think they took it away. Again, I don't know why, but after that, it just kind of died down. There was more emphasis on Simon Saint's return, and so now I think more eyes are on Simon Saint than there are Prophecy. And when it comes down to the Marvelous Brothers, there's the ladder that they're trying to climb to get to where they want to be, and then Simon Saint has the focus on him wherever it may be, and Prophecy is just kind of swimming around at the bottom. And that's not something that a guy like Prophecy with his caliber of talent should be doing. He's been one of the most criminally underutilized performers in USW, and I really hope that changes very soon, but I don't see anything happening along those lines in the near future. This match, however, was really, really good. You had Prophecy continuing to try to lock in the limb lock, but on top of that, he kept fending off Fernandez. Whenever he would get a chance, he would try to chop down at the legs so that way Fernandez wouldn't be able to hit his enziguri, which is his finishing maneuver. Anytime he would go for his enziguri or anything close to it, Prophecy would try to cover his head to absorb as much impact as possible. So Prophecy was really fending off Fernandez as the match went along, and that was a nice little element. He was the one having to fight the uphill battle to an extent. Eventually, Fernandez was able to capitalize and catch Prophecy looking and hit him with the enziguri for the 1-2-3-3 count. So Fernandez walks out of the match with the win over Prophecy, and it was a really good match, and it told a really good story wrestling-wise. But Fernandez gets the momentum rolling again for the Marvelous Brotherhood team thing that he has with Gringo, and Prophecy just. Again, it's one of those things where he's in a zone where you don't want to be, and he's just stuck there. And I don't see that changing in the near future, but I hope it happens soon. However, this was an impressive outing by both performers. They both proved that they can go in the ring. 4 out of 5 stars, and the night just keeps getting better as we go on, if you exclude the Morgan Anthony Zack Hardy match. After this, we have a James and Zack Hardy segment backstage, where James is walking into the building to get to his locker room and prepare for his main event match. When Zack Hardy approaches him, this kind of thing of I'm glad to be able to work with a young performer like yourself, and it's really just this back and forth. Like, I'm glad you're at this level, and I'm glad I'm able to fight against you in the main event tonight instead of somebody that doesn't deserve it, because you surely deserve it. That kind of whole thing. They shake hands backstage, and then they go about their ways. So it was a nice little layer that they added to this face versus face main event match. So, a little bit more interest in the main event match, as it was, even more than you possibly could have had to begin with. Next match was for the USW Tag Team Championships. The Martin Brothers defend against the Stargazers, and God, I don't know how the Stargazers have seemingly gotten fairly over with the crowd, despite not really doing much of note to earn it. they have managed over the past couple of months to, earn a championship opportunity, climb up the ladder and climb up the ranks of contendership to get a shot. And it comes to a head at No Forgiveness when they go into a match with the Martin Brothers, and they really proved that they were as good of a team, if not better, that they were slated as when they walked into USW last year. They were, in this match, they really showed a dominant side that we haven't seen out of Aiden Ritchie and Arvo Black. You had every time one of the Martin brothers would be in the ring, they would try to work them into the Stargazers, or the Stargazers would try to work them into their corner for the entire match. And they would try to keep them in their side of the ring the entire match to maintain that dominant factor. And it really started getting over with the crowd to the point where whenever one of the Martin brothers would get close to a tag in, but would be stopped, you'd hear the crowd escalate and they'd cheer and then go, oh, and then die down because they were getting ready for that tag to be made. So that is the right way to do it. For anybody in wrestling, especially tag team wrestling, you tag team wrestlers, if there's any way you want to get the crowd into your match, make sure, especially if you're the heel team, keep your opponents in your corner for the majority of the match, or for the majority of the time that you're in control, and try to tease that tag in as much as you possibly can, and keep tearing them away from their partners. So that way, when they make the tag, it's that much more emotion evoking. And that is what the Stargazers did this entire match. And the more you went on, at the start of the match, you expected the Martin brothers to retain, but you knew there was a chance that curveball would be thrown. And the more the match went on, this is how you can tell that the Stargazers were absolutely impressed, is that the more the match went on, the less you thought the Martin brothers were going to win, and the more your favor was swinging towards the Stargazers, which is impressive, especially for a team that's just been calculated towards what they want to get to in months prior. So eventually the tag is made and the crowd, erupts for it. And the Stargazers get, beaten down. And to a point where the Stargazers will then continue to take over the match. And the only reason that they lost was because of a roll-up that was caused by their own teammate. So a miscalculation cost the Stargazers the match. The Martin brothers win with a roll-up 1-2-3 to retain the USW Tag Team Championships. And the match was so beautiful and so emotion-evoking to the point where the crowd gave the match a standing ovation to begin with. But at the same time, you walk away knowing the Stargazers had that match won. Had they not had that miscalculation, they'd be walking out the USW Tag Team Champions. And so with that being said, it is impressive to see that the Martin brothers walked out with the titles by the skin of their teeth. And it's now to the point where if you were to see the Stargazers face the Martin brothers again, there's a good chance you might favor the Stargazers in that match before the match even begins. So, to see the Stargazers just barely lose out on the championships means that the next time you see these two face off, the Martin brothers might not get that lucky again. So fantastic match, fantastic character evolution from the Stargazers. 4.5 out of 5 stars. One of the matches of the night if the main event hadn't been so damn good. We'll get to that a little bit later. Next segment was Derek Carter talking about Mr. Anthony being this outsider, and I believe in his words, someone who couldn't handle it in a bigger setting with bigger pay and brighter lights, which is a great way to describe someone who couldn't get it done on a big stage. You couldn't get it done when the lights were bright, and that the wording of that was just absolutely perfect and fit Derek Carter's character so damn well. When it came down to his promo, this may be my opinion. I know a lot of USW fans were split, like this is him becoming more deranged, like losing his mind. And there were people going, all right, maybe this is, a face turn, or a face turn disguised like this dark, deep, brooding emotion coming out of Derek Carter. And I really like that talk process because Carter's kind of walking into this like he's this vigilante for intensity. Like he's trying to rid Mr. Anthony, because USW is built off of wrestling, is built off of stories, homegrown talent. And Mr. Anthony is not homegrown talent. And so Derek Carter expressing that makes me feel like this is a very, very small, very, very hinted turn at a face role. And I really like that, especially since Derek Carter has never been a face in USW. He was in USW for a couple of months at the beginning of 2013. He was a heel. And he's been in USW since 2014, and he's been a heel ever since then. And of course, he spent a year out of action with a torn ACL, but he's been a heel ever since then. So if this is a face turn, I'm really interested to see where this goes, because a lot of people would kind of look at this and go, well, this is, I mean, it's about damn time. But Jesus, it's perfectly timed, perfect, like a fine wine. But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, or what comes out of this. Sorry, the chair is. Listen. I don't have enough. I don't know what the fuck to do. This chair has been around for 20, no, maybe 15 years or something like that. So, yeah, same. I mean, it's the same chair that you've seen me sit in, like 2015. So, enjoy. But I'm really interested in seeing where Derek Carter's character goes after this segment, because it kind of elicits from me this idea that he's about to turn face. Maybe it's a slow burn, and it feels like it's going to be slower than usual if it is a slow burn towards a face turn. But I'm really interested in seeing where this goes forward, especially after the match that he had at No Forgiveness. And the next match, I won't spare too much of my time because I don't think it's worth a lot of my time. Morgan Anthony beat Zack Hardy. This feud is just something that I know myself and a lot of other USW fans and watchers and viewers have just been sick of. Really can't somewhat better as months go on, but he's really not anywhere near the caliber like a lot of performers on the roster are. And Zack Hardy has been carrying him to a lot of at least semi-decent matches over the past couple of months, but this feud is just not doing anything for me. And a lot of other fans feel the same way. And I know that from what I've heard from the intensity shows and everything like that, it's just built off of Morgan Anthony attacking Zack Hardy. And that gets stale after a while. So this is stale for me. The match was all right. It was a slug to have to sit through, because I obviously had to watch it and review it for you. And when that's the case, it really damages my rating of the match. When I have to sit there, I'm like, okay, just get to the end, please. And, of course, I won't just keep hoping for the end, because at that point in time, I'm missing out on every good spot. But there was really nothing of note there. This is one of those matches I would compare to Shinsuke Nakamura versus Jinder Mahal, or Shinsuke Nakamura versus Dolph Ziggler from Backlash 2016 or 2017. 2017. It was just one of those matches I didn't want to watch. Or no, I'm sorry, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Baron Corbin at Backlash, I believe it was. Or no, that was Dolph Ziggler. No, it was whatever pay-per-view Shinsuke Nakamura fought Baron Corbin on. It was like a slug to sit through, and I didn't like it. 2.25 out of 5 stars, one of my lowest ratings I've ever given a USW match, and that's bad, because USW is capable of so much more. Next match was for the Red Belt Championship. It was Anarchy defending the championship against Philip Akron. There we go. Sorry. It was Anarchy defending against Philip Akron. This match was not a bad match. It was actually one of those matches I was getting into as longer that it went on. The reason why I gave it the rating that I gave it was because of the way that it ended. It ended in a no contest with both performers being counted out. So it ends in a double count out on a No Forgiveness pay-per-view. For one, I don't like the idea of Philip Akron being in the Red Belt Championship picture now when he had such a damn good run with the Blue Belt Championship. But, I will not I will not just look at the match for that. The match was all right. The match was good. It was decent. Anarchy and Akron have some sort of chemistry, but it's not like they have a whole load of it. And the ending really soured it for me because I would have wanted to see a clean ending, but I can see why they did the double count out. There's been the rumor right now is that, and I'll try not to spoil it in case you haven't seen the match or you just want to hear my review of it. The word on the street is that the Call to Greatness picture is set for the USW champion now to defend against Anthony and a lot of other main event players on Intensity feuding in big level matches. And Philip Akron just for some reason wasn't really leveled into those big matches. And so he's not going to get the USW championship run that we've been hoping for yet. So that's why they're placing him in the Red Belt Championship. This is more than likely just a throwaway run between him and Anarchy, but they're going to extend it probably towards Call to Greatness. So that way he at least has something to do. Anyway, I'm happy that he has something to do for Call to Greatness. I'm upset that it's not worth something more, but for what it was a decent match. I can see why they ended it the way they did, but then again, it wasn't like one of those things that I could really give a great rating to for the ending. So Anarchy and Akron gets a 3.25 out of 5 stars for me. I kept getting into it as it went on, but once it kind of came to an abrupt end, that really soured the rating for me. Otherwise, we probably would have gotten 3.5 or 3.75 out of 5 stars. Yes. All right, I'm looking at it wrong. I was thinking, wait, when did Zack Hardy and James go second last? Derek Carter versus Mr. Anthony was the next match, the semi-main event, I guess. And this match was really good. You were interested in it going into the match because it is Mr. Anthony and Derek Carter, two great performers, and it was a match that we've been building up to since Illusion 2017. So it was a match that I was looking forward to, and I know a lot of other people were looking forward to, and especially after the Derek Carter promo backstage a couple of, maybe an hour before this match at this point in time, probably less than that, but you were just more interested in it. And so it was a really, really good match. Derek Carter is one of the most through and through best performers today. This match was really good. You had the chemistry between both performers. Derek Carter kind of being a snobby heel and Mr. Anthony kind of having to fight this battle with. It's like Derek Carter has a sword and Mr. Anthony has a sharpened shield. Like it's kind of a case that you're not going to be able to do too much against a sword with a sword with a sharpened shield. But it was definitely a good match, and you had the elements of Carter being the snobby heel that he's always been. But towards the end, you had this. This is why a lot of people thought this was a face turn for Derek Carter, because you had at the end when Mr. Anthony had an ankle lock in, you had Derek Carter ready to get to the ropes. And when he got to the ropes and Mr. Anthony let go, Derek Carter picked himself up when the referee went and asked him if he could continue fighting. He said absolutely and just kept going at him. So eventually later on in the match when Carter had Anthony in an ankle lock and Anthony grabbed a hold of the rope, Derek Carter dropped the leg, went to the turnbuckle pad and just kind of breathed like he wasn't going to go overboard. And that was this scent or this picture of resilience. He was fighting off his inner urge to just beat down Mr. Anthony and use the 5 count to his advantage, which is a very heel-like thing to do. So it was kind of like these splashes and hints of face in this heel persona. And at the end of the match, Mr. Anthony gets hit with a super kick for the 3 count. Derek Carter stuns a lot of people, including myself. I was actually backstage when I heard that Derek Carter had beaten Mr. Anthony because I was getting ready to walk out. I was just like, oh, they didn't expect that. And I think this is USW's way of saying, yeah, we may have pulled the trigger a little bit too fast on Mr. Anthony, but we never disappointed you before. Stick with us. We're going to give you reason to be interested. going into Call to Greatness. So this is, definitely their way of saying that. And overall, it just does wonders for Derek Carter. This was Mr. Anthony's singles debut, and I don't think you see that lost very often. But now it is seeing Mr. Anthony having to work his way up in such little time, going into Call to Greatness, because he's already got a world championship opportunity in his hands. He's now got to prove that extremely quickly. So that he's working up against time, and the pressure is now on. So that's a good little hint of story there. 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this match. Derek Carter gets a lot of momentum going forward. He's going to surge into Call to Greatness with a good role in the show, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do, more than likely next month, which I assume Mr. Anthony will win. Time for the main event. The USW Championship is on the line. Zack Hardy defends the championship against James. This match was, going into it, there was the expectation that Zack Hardy was going to walk out with the win, whether it be by a roll-up or something. It wasn't going to be a full-on clean win, and they would have another match going into next month's, I believe, Allegiance pay-per-view. And if that wasn't where James would win at Call to Greatness. So it was this case of, there were a lot of different things that could happen. Hardy could beat James and defend against Anthony at Call to Greatness. James could beat Hardy, fight him again next month, then defend against Anthony at Call to Greatness. Hardy could beat James here. James could beat Hardy next month, and James could defend against Anthony at Call to Greatness. A lot of different ways that this could have played out. So the match was extremely good from top to bottom. We've been getting a lot of good Zack Hardy matches over the past couple of months, and I've been really, really into them. And when it came down to this match, this was a more freestyle kind of wrestling match. There were a lot of counters, there were a lot of holds, and what was rare about this match was that Zack Hardy was in control for the majority of it. Zack Hardy's role in matches a lot of time are to fight this uphill battle when he is not in the dominant position. So this was something that Zack Hardy was not used to, but played to it very well looking back onto the match. James played the working the uphill battle very well. He's been doing that for the past couple of years with this uphill battle towards success. So it was very fitting that this match was where he had to fight the uphill battle the most. At the end of the day, it was Zack Hardy going for the Hardiac faceplant, which was countered into a knee strike, which was then hit with the midway for the 1-2-3, James's crowning moment, with him capturing the gold, defeating Zack Hardy to become the new USW Championship at No Forgiveness. This was a big moment, primarily because this has been in the works for months, if not years now. James has been slowly working his way up now. And when it comes down to the future of USW, aside from guys, Majigeta, Cannon, Zack Hardy, Western Light's already retired. Yo-Yo Joe's more than likely on his way out too. Derek Carter will more than likely be a future fixture of USW. But with guys like Zack Hardy and Majigeta and Cannon due to leave in the coming years to go to another promotion, somewhere where they can be bigger and have more, potential, there's a lot of your signature stars gone. So USW is doing really well in building up their future now, and their future looks to be in the eyes of James, Ezra Kills, Benny Franklin, guys like Mika Jordan, Chris Ross, Alexander Rotten, so on and so forth, and they're working it pretty well. So this was a big moment for James, and then at the end of the match, Zack Hardy gets up, and when you don't know whether it's going to be this extend of the hand or this blindsided attack, is the extend of the hand, and it is a shake between James and Zack Hardy before Hardy raises James's hand to end the show, and that closes out No Forgiveness with James on top of the mountain for the first time in his career. This is also his first World Championship win. So that being said, No Forgiveness was a really, really good show from top to bottom. If you exclude, Morgan Anthony and Zach Arden, and that's about that. Every match was, other than Anthony and Arden, was semi-decent, if not intriguing. Simon, Saint, and Gringo was good from top to bottom. Carver and Hernastley told a great story. Fernandez and Prophecy was just, one after the other. It was a tale that was being stretched out till the end. Martin Brothers and Stargazers was really the show-up party for the Stargazers. Anthony and Arden can be excused. Anarchy and Akron was just interesting as he kept going along until it was a sudden halt that will throw off some people. But it was definitely a match that you could get into. Carter versus Anthony was a fantastic match with an ending that was very shocking and that you did not see coming. And then James versus Zack Hardy was a fantastic match and worth the price of admission alone. So when it comes down to No Forgiveness 2018, I will give this show Intensity Soul branded pay-per-view a 4.25 out of 5 stars. It had everything. It had fantastic wrestling. It had great stories being told. The wrestling ability of all performers worked very well. There were tales told, and overall, it was a fantastic way to send fans home happy. And it's a really, really great building block towards Call to Greatness on the Intensity brand side. So, as I always do, was it worth the $19.99 to rent for the first time? I would say yes. It was absolutely. It was one of the prime examples of Intensity doing right when it comes down to their pay-per-views. It was a great product. And was it worth the extra $5 to buy or to own? Absolutely. I think the wrestling, the stories, the tales, it was fantastic. You get like Simon Saint and his momentum and drive towards the rest of his USW career. You had Tyree Carver on his building block toward if he turns out to be one of the best blue belt champions that you see, this is going to be the time this is going to be the pay-per-view where you look back and go, this is where it started. Fernandez and Gringo both had a showing that proved that they can have a great future in the tag team division. I'm really looking forward to that. The Stargazers showed up brighter than ever, and I'm really looking forward to that. The Martin brothers just eked out a win by the skin of their teeth, which was impressive, but at the same time tells a story for later down the line. Prophecy, I mean, he is very capable of wrestling, and of his wrestling ability is fantastic, but he's just not in the realm of anything new to do yet. Hopefully that'll change. Morgan Anthony and Zack Arden was excusable when it comes down to the show, just a write-off, I guess. Anarchy is kind of fighting the uphill battle as a red belt champion in Akron. It's giving him something to do. Derek Carter walks out with a lot of momentum after beating out Mr. Anthony, and Mr. Anthony he's working against the clock when it comes down to what he's going to be able to do towards Call to Greatness, and if he can go into Call to Greatness with momentum at all. And then Zack Hardy with a great showing, and now you'll see him in the USW Championship picture probably until next month, and then he'll move on to something going into Call to Greatness. And James is now the USW champion on top of the world. Fantastic show and a fantastic way to close things out. Now, with that being said, that concludes my USW No Forgiveness 2018 review. Thank you all for watching. I would like you to let me know any of your opinions and analysis on the show. Leave me those in the comments below. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll probably start doing the Wrestle Target ad reads probably by next week. Thank you guys for watching. I sincerely hope you enjoyed. This was a very fun review to be able to do. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. I'm Zack Hardy. Signing off.